Hello everyone, thanks for tuning up to my Saturday live stream from Odessa's historical quarter. As usual, every Saturday and Sunday at 1 p.m. I'm streaming live from the city's old town. So last weekend we streamed from this beautiful boulevard. This is Odessa's marine facade. You can watch our previous live streams on our YouTube channel at Odessa Walks. So this boulevard is Odessa's marine facade. Let me pull it up closer. The buildings face the Black Sea, which you can see a little bit behind the trees. And we stopped at this gorgeous building, which is Odessa City Hall. Originally, since in the early 1800s, it housed Odessa's wheat and commodity exchange. What made the city rich was grain and wheat trade. That's where the money came from. But then, according to a local legend, which is nothing but a legend, Italian traders, when they saw this building, they complained. Because to them it looked more like a Greek-style temple. Indeed, it looks a little bit like a temple. And they felt more like praying and not trading. So in the late 1800s, the Italian architect designed a new building for the grain and commodity exchange. The trade moved there, and this became the City Hall. Since late 1800s, it's been the City Hall. This is the sculpture of Hermes, the god of trade. He's one of the city gods, wishing you health and wealth. A very timely wish. This is the sign with the names of Odessa's sister cities. These are all sister cities: Liverpool, Alexandria, Gdansk, St. Petersburg, Tbilisi, Haifa, and the distance from these places to Odessa. Odessa was a multinational city from the day one. I've already mentioned Italians. I talked a little bit about the foreign settlers in the previous live streams. So here were Bulgarians, Italians, Greeks, Jews, Russians, Ukrainians, Moldavians. They came here attracted by lots of opportunities of the fast-growing city, by equal rights, and very often they were invited to come here by the governors. One of Odessa's early governors had lots of connections with England. He developed trade between Odessa and Liverpool. He came here with English family doctors. He invited here English engineers. So very soon the English community became quite big. And of course the Brits wanted something of their own. So they established the soccer team. Locals still laugh when they say that these were the Brits who taught Odessans how to play soccer. And that's true. And this is the building of the English Men's Club. Members only, very elite club. The building was built in 1841 by an Italian architect. The club also organized the masquerade balls, and while this building was being built, the balls were held in the main hall of the grain and commodity exchange, which is this house. An interesting thing on the Englishmen's Club is this one. You can see it better from this angle. So this tool is a harpoon. And you may wonder why a harpoon is here on the terrace of the Englishmen's Club. So what's the connection? When the Soviets took it over, of course the Englishmen's Club was shut down and the building was turned into the Museum of the Black Sea Shipping Company and Odessa's port. During World War II, when Odessa was occupied by the Romanians and Nazis, lots of the exhibits disappeared. After the war, the museum was reopened. In 2005, there was a fire inside the building which destroyed lots of the exhibits. About 7 years ago, the city and the regional administration found the money to restore the building, but they haven't finished the inside. So now the talks are to give this building, to transfer the ownership to the port and to the Odessa Shipping Company so that they finish the interiors and open it as a museum. So why is the harpoon here? In the Soviet times, in the 1970s and 80s, Odessa was the home base of the whaling fleet. Yeah, it may sound strange, but the whaling fleet was based here, but the ships sailed all the way down to the Pacific Ocean for whale hunting. So this is a harpoon from one of the whaling ships. Another interesting building on the square is behind the evergreen trees. This is the Odessa Archeology Museum. The city was about 30 years old when here appeared the Society of the Antique Lovers. The early settlers knew that the territories along the Black Sea coast were populated since the ancient times. There were lots of stories about the ancient Greeks, about the Scythian gold. So people were doing lots of diggings, they kept finding things, so the society appeared. And for many, many decades they were renting rooms for the exhibits. Finally, in 1880s, the city mayor, who came from a very rich Greek merchant family, gave the money to build this house. And this is a mini copy of the museum for the blind people. Very nice. Since 1880s, it's been the Archeology Museum. And the statue in front of it, of course, it's a copy of Laocoon. It comes from the private residence of that city mayor who gave the money. When the Soviets took it over, they nationalized all private property, and some of the statues which decorated that private property were put around the city for decorations. This area is gated because the boulevard where we started is a pedestrian area, and this area is pedestrian. So now I'm turning around the corner and walking down the street. One of the highlights of the exhibits of this museum is the collection of Hunnic and ancient Greek golden ornaments and a very interesting collection of coins. Next to the Archeology Museum is the Literary Museum. This great building houses the Odessa Literary Museum, which is also very interesting. Originally, the house belonged to an aristocratic family, which presented it to the Odessa's Literature Society in the late 1800s. This building has seen lots of prominent writers who lived or who came to visit. They went there to do public readings, to discuss their books, their works. Then after the 1917 revolution, of course the Literary Society was shut down. The building was turned into the warehouse, which destroyed much of the interior. Finally, in 1970s, an Odessan pooled his connections and opened a museum. He was a retired KGB colonel. It was his passionate dream to tell the story of the city through the lives of the writers who were either born in the city or worked here. So he did everything possible and impossible to get this building, put tremendous efforts into restoring the interiors, and made one of the largest literature museums in the former USSR. Well worth a visit if you're in the city. Highly recommended, but you'd better go there with a guide, because all the exhibits are with the signs in Russian and Ukrainian languages. If I continue walking down the street and down the staircase, I'll come up to this road, which you see at the bottom of the staircase, which goes straight into the Odessa's commercial port. The staircase is a mini copy of the Potemkin steps. In the 1800s, this spot acted as a border between the rich world, the world of the upper class, which is up there, up the road, and the world of the poor, which was down the steps next to the harbor, the dockers, poor people who had occasional jobs at the port. That's where all these folks lived. An interesting house with the Oriental elements is this one. Looks very different from other mansions which you've just seen. It was built in 1840s to house the headquarters of the Russian trading company. Still belongs to the Odessa's port. This mansion was privately owned in the 1800s, of course, by a retired military general. One of the most beautiful buildings on the street is this one. Today it consists of private apartments. And if you look at it carefully, you can tell that the top floor does not belong here. In 1960s, 1950s, when the city's administration was restoring the houses after the World War II, very often they were adding the extra floors to the old houses to create more housing, more apartments in the old town. And if the house was located in the city center, they put an effort to blend the new floor in. Like this is the case with this building. The street is named after a French aristocrat, Count Langeron, who served as an Odessa's governor and did a lot for the city in the early 1800s. So Langeron Street. A famous Jewish Zionist, one of the fathers of the idea of creation of the state of Israel. His name is Jabotinsky. To us, he is more known as a writer. He wrote a novel, The Five, which gives us the best description of Odessa of the early 1900s. And for the locals, it's something similar to a guidebook of Odessa of that period. And now I want to flip the camera and give you a quote which just describes this spot, and the quote is from that book. To the right, I see the houses of Italian Street, in my time known as Pushkin Street, since it was there where the poet wrote Onegin. Turning around, there's the English Club, and here's the English Club, and farther off in the distance, the left facade of the Municipal Theatre. These were built at different times, but all with one and the same love of the foreign spirit of the city. Look how broad the streets are. That's how they were designed by the first city plan, which was created in the very, very early 1800s. And that's what amazed travelers, and still amazes travelers who come here. One of the biggest challenges the city's administration had during the early days was to get stone to cobble the streets. Odessa was famous for its sandstorms. Yep, some people are getting married. The only stone which exists in this area is limestone, but it's way too soft for cobbling. Italian grain traders were sailing here with Italian lava, which was used here to cobble the roads. We still have it. Then in 1860s, the city started using granite to cobble the roads. This is some of the granite cobbling, and lots of streets of the old town have preserved that. And then in the early 1900s, the city made the decision to sign a contract with an Austro-Hungarian company and to buy from them the ceramic blocks. Here they are. The city officials first decided to do a pilot project and to cobble only a small spot in the old town with the ceramic blocks. That's what you're seeing. And then it turned out that the project was very expensive. The ceramic blocks were way too slippery. They are slippery. Then the Bolshevik Revolution happened. The plans were changed, of course. And today this is the only area in the city, in the old town, which is cobbled with such ceramic blocks. You can see them in some areas in Vienna. The anchor is the city symbol. You can see it on lots of buildings in the old town. And this is Odessa's Walk of Fame, similar to the Walk of Fame in Hollywood. It started about 10 years ago with the first stars. The first star has the Odessa name. The stars are to the famous locals, to the people who were born here or who had lots of connections with the city. They're mostly bohemians, writers, painters, sculptors, poets. This is the star to Isaac Babel, the famous Odessa-born writer who made Jewish Odessa famous in his Odessa Stories. And this is another view on the Englishmen's Club. With the anchor above the entrance. This stunning building behind the trees is Odessa's iconic site, the National Opera and Ballet Theatre. This is where I'm heading to. Tomorrow we're gonna dedicate the whole stream to the theater. We're literally gonna be walking around it, and I'm gonna be sharing with you lots of stories. This is the end of our live stream. Thanks for tuning up. As always, the pre-recorded version of the live stream is on our YouTube channel at Odessa Walks, and we go live every Saturday and Sunday at 1 p.m. GMT from our Facebook page at Odessa Walks. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay healthy. Bye-bye.